Hi, I'm Greg Schaffer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Butch Rutt joins us today. He is the Campus Security Supervisor for Littleton Public Schools. Butch, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So would love to start out by hearing about your background. You're a little bit of a different background guest than what we usually have on the virtual CISO moment, and love the eclectic mix of things that you've done in your past. So start from the beginning and take us all the way up to where you're at today.
Let's see. I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. My dad was in the advertising business with CF&I Steel. We moved to Denver when I was about 5 years old in 1964. And I have three sisters, one older, two younger. My parents got divorced when I was about 8. My dad remarried, moved back to Pennsylvania, so my mom was raising 4 kids. So she sold her house. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment, and I had my own bedroom because I was the only boy. And when I turned 16, I quit high school and moved out. And my mom got her own bedroom. And so I worked on cars. Back then, I wanted to own a gas station. I loved gas stations back then. I was interested in cars. I liked tinkering with them, working on them.
And that's when you could work on cars, not like it is today. It's hard to work on cars.
It's virtually impossible to work on them today.
Yeah. People don't know anything about like carburetor or adjusting the timing or anything like that. No,
they don't. Carburetors are kind of the thing of the past, but we still work on them down at my friend's shop. Old hot rods and street rods. But so, yeah, I quit high school, moved out. Part of me always wanted to be a pilot, a Navy pilot. I saw the Blue Angels when I was a really little kid, and that was kind of in the back of my head. So when I was 19, I started taking flying lessons. And when I was 20, I decided I better get an education. So I got my GED. Started college when I was 21. Went to Metropolitan State. They had a great aerospace science department. Graduated in 2.5 years with a bachelor's degree in aerospace science, and ended up going into the Navy, September of '83, down to Pensacola for Aviation Officer Candidate School with Marine Corps drill instructors.
Oh, that must have been fun.
It was absolutely eye-opening. Mission rate huge. We started out with a class of 86, and 34 of us ended up getting commissioned.
Wow.
And then, yeah, it was crazy. And then flight school, graduated at the top of my class. I picked props. I flew P3s in Barbers Point, Hawaii for 3.5 years.
Wow.
I was a RAG instructor at Moffett my last 2 years in the Navy. And then I didn't really have a big desire to be an airline pilot at the time. So I got on with the United States Customs Service out of Corpus Christi, Texas, flying P3s. Had to go to the Federal Law Enforcement Police Academy down in Glencoe, Georgia for 6 months. Spent 3 years in Central and South America, Bolivia, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador. Worked extensively with the DEA out of Bolivia, Santa Cruz, Bolivia, with Operation Snowcap. That's now a defunct program. So I spent 3 years in Central and South America.
What was Operation Snowcap, if you can talk about it?
Yeah, it's a defunct program, but back then DEA had Operation Snowcap, and it was agents from all across the country that applied for it. And if they got accepted, they had to go through a jungle survival school, Spanish school, mini ranger school, a lot of special training. And then once they graduated, they were put on a team, like a special forces team. It was a 12-man unit, and they would rotate. They'd spend 3 months down in Bolivia at our base camp outside of Cochabamba. And it was a rotating special forces, and we worked with the Bolivian military and the UMAPAR. Essentially, most of the cocaine is grown in the Chapare region of Bolivia at the time. And so we would go out with the Bolivian military and the UMAPAR and find these little mom and pop grow stations that were manufacturing the cocoa into paste, and they'd fly it out of there into big labs in southern Colombia. So we'd arrest them and burn all the stuff, and then they would take the people and interrogate them, and I never really saw them after that. It was pretty wild.
It's yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's a 12-man unit, so they had like a commanding officer, an executive officer, just like the military setup, an admin officer, a training officer, a weapons officer, an explosive ordnance officer, a medic, and we would fly out in Huey helicopters with bombs, shaped charges, and crater runways that the cartel was using in Bolivia.
Ah, yeah, so that they couldn't use the runways anymore, right?
Right.
They wouldn't be able to use the runways to move their product.
The first time we were flying out, I was sitting in the Huey with my feet on the skids, sitting in the helicopter. I have an M16 laid across my legs. The sun's just coming up. We're flying over triple canopy jungle at treetop level. And I just remember sitting there thinking, man, this is as close to Vietnam as I'm ever going to get. It was crazy. And it was a lot of fun, but I was single back then and early 30s, you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And
right. And you don't have responsibilities outside of your own. It makes things a little bit easier to be a little bit more cavalier. So
yeah. So that was fun. I enjoyed being a federal agent, and I enjoyed flying. It was kind of the best of both worlds. Couldn't get out of Corpus Christi, Texas, which I didn't really enjoy living there too much. So I got offered a job at the rack office here in Denver just to be a street agent. So I thought, I'll just move back home and I can be an agent and it'll be great. And then the aviation side wouldn't let me go. They said, no, we need pilots. I said, well, if you don't let me go, I'm going to quit. And they said, okay. So I quit. I got on with Northwest Airlines out of Minneapolis. I flew for Northwest for 11 years, DC-9s, DC-10s, Airbus, A320s. Got married, and my wife wanted to have a kid, and I didn't want to be gone 3 weeks out of the month with a brand new kid. So I got on with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, just west of Denver in Golden. And I was a deputy sheriff for 15 years. And we have a son, and he's grown now, and he's a senior in high school. It was a really tough time to be a cop. You're familiar with the George Floyd incident.
Right.
So just the whole treatment, I spent most of my life trying to be one of the good guys. And it was like overnight, we were told by society that we were the problem, And that was kind of a tough pill to swallow. And it just got to be, it wasn't fun anymore. And throughout my entire life, I've done things and had jobs. And I do it until it's not fun anymore. And then I find something else to do. So I quit the Sheriff's Department. A friend of mine had a startup company called Farm Box Foods. And they grow vertical hydroponic gardens inside of 40-foot insulated shipping containers. So you can grow food anywhere, urban, rural. So I went to work for him for about a year and didn't particularly enjoy that. I didn't think the company was really going anywhere, and growing lettuce isn't my gig. So I looked around for another job.
And again, it's like you said, it's like if you're not having fun, what's the point, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's been a good theory to live by, but from the financial aspect of it, it's probably not the best way to handle things. A lot of my friends now are retired, and I'm still working, but I enjoy working.
No,
I could have retired 20 years ago, but I'm not. Instead, I put all my money into solid investments like sailboats and race cars and stuff like that.
Oh, yes. I know. I used to own an airplane. I understand about those types of investments, but I do think that it is important. I mean, the financial aspects aside, it is important to be in a position that you're enjoying. Are you enjoying now your current position as campus? Well, what are you doing as campus security supervisor for Littleton?
Yeah, I ended up getting on Littleton Public Schools as a campus security supervisor at Heritage High School, which is the very high school I dropped out of as a 16-year-old.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, it's kind of comes full
And
circle.
coming from somebody, now I didn't drop out of high school, but I was asked to leave and never return from 3 high schools. And
Okay.
actually one eventually said, well, we'll let you back, but only for a couple hours a day, as if that was punishment. And I'm like, oh no, it's like that. So my last 3 months of high school, I was there for 2 hours a day and then graduated and then got out. But I don't foresee them, Seton Catholic Central in Binghamton. If you're looking for a part-time security officer, I'd be happy to come work for you as your alum, but I don't think that they would want me back. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
it's fun. Heritage is a big school. We've got about 1,800 students.
Mm-hmm. That's a big high school.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Of the 3 high schools in Littleton, it's the largest. And I tell people that this is the most low-stress job I've ever had as an adult.
Really?
It's
Well,
fun.
I guess if you're talking about like a past of going after drug folks and going after criminals as a sheriff and all that, I guess working in a high school would end up being a lot less stress. Because I would think that working in high school would be more stress, but I don't know. I live a pretty stress-free life sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on where you are, too. I mean, I think working in downtown Denver would be vastly different.
Yeah,
We have a
I
good
would
school.
agree.
We've got good kids. We've got great parents. We have a lot of parental support. And that makes a big difference. So, yeah, I work 8 to 4, hanging out, walking to school, making sure all the doors are closed and locked. And we've got about 140 cameras we can monitor throughout the school, inside and outside. I have a golf cart. I drive around the perimeter of the property and make sure everything's okay. And primarily it's doors and windows, that's what you're concerned about. And keeping an eye on who's coming and going.
So I'm curious though. This is kind of a going back in your career and coming up to where you're at now. I always ask folks that were prior military. It's what aspects from when you were in the military has transferred well into civilian life that has helped you with your civilian career. So I'll expand that a little bit because you were a naval officer and you were with customs. So from those 2 experiences, how has it helped you? What have you taken from the military and the services being a special agent for customs? What have you taken from those experiences that you apply today up working for the school?
Probably the number one would be situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Being aware of your surroundings and who's around you, and feeling the vibe. You can always, especially being law enforcement and military, you can always tell when something doesn't feel right. If a situation doesn't feel right, you can sense tension. You can sense confrontation, I think, pretty well. So you can de-escalate things at the school before they even get started.
So you can actually, that's an interesting point. You can actually sense that sort of tension across generational gap. I mean, you don't have an issue with the fact that you're talking about kids at this point in time?
No, you can kind of tell by the tone. You can tell by the volume and the tone. And the words that are being said. Of course, kids cuss a lot more than they used to, but pretty much just the tone and the volume will tell you a lot about a room, like in the cafeteria. There's where there's a lot of kids around, or hanging around outside in groups. You get a sense, you get a feel.
Would you say is like one of the more significant things that kids face nowadays? I think about my high school days, and well, first of all, it's like I think that I wouldn't want to be a student today. because the social media aspect is just so pervasive. It's like,
Bingo. Bingo.
I,
That's it.
you know, I was bullied until I learned how to stand up to folks in high school. It was like one of those like instances where it's almost like I'm outside of my body. It's like this one guy, I was new at this high school in Binghamton, New York, and he was picking on me. And then finally I just got in his face. I said, okay, let's go outside. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. And I'm saying that, and I'm thinking to myself, what the heck are you saying? Why are you doing this?
Right.
But it worked. I mean, I was able to deflect. Now him and I never became like friends, but we respected each other.
There you
But
go.
this bullying that you have on social media is so much different. Do you see that at the school, and do you see some of the effects? And if so, it's like, how are the students dealing with it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Social media is the downfall.
Yeah.
iPhones and social media. But we also have a program in place at Littleton, in Littleton Public Schools, called Safe to Tell. So these kids can dial a number, they can text, they can call, and they can report things on Safe to Tells. And those Safe to Tells get delivered immediately to the district security office and to the school principal and to the school's resource officer. We have a Littleton police officer at every high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can squelch things before they even really get started in most cases. They investigate it. They do a lot of welfare checks, talk to kids, make sure it's okay. Kids report bullying. They report suicidal ideations, either with themselves or other kids. They report drug use. And that's a pretty big benefit. And an avenue for kids to say things without anybody knowing about it.
Yeah, because
So
I was going to assume that this is all anonymous, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. So they get to keep their anonymity, and and it's very helpful for us. But yeah, social media is just horrible. It's the worst thing kids face. The social media and the iPhones, the constant phones.
Well, the social
really
media, it's almost designed from the bottom up to be confrontational. It's like the algorithms, they encourage disagreement, they encourage trolling, and particularly those platforms that allow anonymity, like X, for example. People will say things, they call them keyboard warriors, that they would never say in real life. And I think I like your opinion on this. And I step back to the world before social media, where it's like you had instant feedback back in the day whenever you said or did something. And you knew then it was like right or wrong, or it wasn't sociologically correct, or you get your butt kicked, in some instances. But these folks hiding behind keyboards, I'm a little bit worried that we're raising generations of folks that some don't know how to actually interact with people face to face in confrontational settings. Do you see some sort of a shift over the generations because of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see. And not only don't they communicate in confrontational situations, but a lot of them have a hard time just communicating just on a one-on-one basis. They don't look you in the eye. They don't speak well. They don't write. I'll get notes written from kids about things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, who wrote this? But they don't teach cursive writing anymore. And it's all
I heard that a few days ago, or a few weeks ago. They don't teach cursive. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Not that I could ever write well, but
Right. Yeah.
But all of these items, all these things that are necessary for proper development, and yet technology Now, I can see that technology is good in that you were saying that, and I can't remember the term that you used, but basically the self-reporting and all of that, where it's a lot
Mhm.
easier for someone to self-report real fast. Whereas back in the day, it would be kind of difficult to like, if you went down to the principal's office, it's pretty obvious that there would be eyes that would see you talking with somebody and you would be ratted out for being a rat. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, and then you get one of
Yep.
those lessons on how to comply and be taken out behind the school and, get your butt whipped and all that.
Right.
But I pity the generation that doesn't have this instant feedback of like, of being able to communicate. So I'm just wondering, do you think that maybe one of the solutions might be just to take away phones from kids in school?
Well, the teachers take phones away from them in the classroom. They're not allowed to
Well,
have their
okay,
phone
okay.
in the class. They have
Hmm.
they've got a pouches hanging on the wall. So when the kids walk in the classroom, they put their phones in a pouch,
Mm.
and that helps. But in between classes and at lunchtime, they all have them. Yeah,
And I
but
guess they still have to have them in the classroom in case there's like some sort of an emergency. The parents, I guess, are more like what do they call it, helicopter parents. They hover a little
yeah.
more. They want to be able to access their kids 24/7 by 365.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
No.
really nothing good comes out of that. But I mean, in my opinion. But yeah, the phones are a huge issue in the schools. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm I'm impressed with I'm impressed with the quality of the kids these days. These high school
Hmm.
kids.
In
They're
what way?
very well. A lot of them are very mature. They're smart. They're very mature. They're engaging. And I've discovered the real importance of extracurriculars for high school kids, be it sports or music or clubs or theater. Kids that are involved with anything extracurricular, they tend to be better students, and you have vastly fewer behavioral issues with them.
Yeah, I think that
Especially,
that was true back in the day too, because idle hands are the devil's work or something like that. It's
Mhm.
if you're into a hobby, or I did a little bit on the sports side, did a little bit on the acting side, and it kind of kept me away from some of the bad things that I was doing. You mentioned before that about having fun. Are you having fun at your job here, or do you find that you have like limited stress?
Oh no, no! Should I have a ball? It's fun. I've got 1,800 kids I can mess with. You know, fun. Um, yeah, I enjoy interacting with them. I cruise around the school. I kind of do my own thing. I might jump on the golf cart and drive around and check things out, make sure nobody's making out on the football field or up in the baseball. Uh, yeah,
Uh, so
it's just
so
fun.
actually, I mean, I would usually ask at this point in the podcast, I'd ask, well, it's a very stressful job in information security and in our field, this and that. What do you do to decompress? But it sounds like that what you're doing is decompressing. You're doing something that you're enjoying, which I think that that's a good lesson for everybody.
Yeah, kids come up to me all day long and talk, ask questions, you know, or or really just want to shoot the shit. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Rutt, what'd you do this weekend? I worked on my car. Well, what kind of car you got? I got a 1970 Chevelle Super Sport. Oh wow, my dad loves those cars. So we talk about sports, we talk about cars, we talk about life, talk about
I
school.
love the fact that they're actually like asking you for information about life, recognizing the fact that you carry so much experience. That I worry about like, do we have like respect for the older generation? And I'm not saying you're older generation. I'm just saying that just the difference between ages and all that. Sometimes I worry that kids don't care about like what you and I what our life experience is like. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Or they'll come up to me and say, I heard you were a Navy pilot. I said, yeah, sure was.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. What was that like? Um,
Uh,
yes, when they ask me about school, they ask me about colleges. I always tell them, don't be in such a big hurry to run to college. You know,
Yeah.
get out and live a little,
Yeah.
get a little experience, figure out what you're going to do, what you want to do, and then take it from there. But don't go spend $80,000 a year at Michigan before you even know what you want to do. You know,
And I have to agree with that because I'm one of those. I took because I was asked to leave and never return from 3 high schools. I realized I wasn't quite ready to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and so yeah, I took
right.
a year off between high school and college, and so I can support that. That was one of the best decisions that I think I ever made. Well, I got one last question for you, and that is, I mean, what are your future plans? Do you see being at Littleton for a long time at the high school there, or what's your future plans?
You know, I could work there for another 3 or 4 years, I think, pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
I have recently been contacted by an airline um, to be a ground school instructor and teach aircraft systems.
Uh-huh.
So I applied for that, and we'll see. You know, we'll see if how the interview process goes, and you know, if that's something I want to get back into a little bit. I'm too old to fly. Um, you know, you get pushed out at 65. So
Well, I heard on the radio yesterday they were talking about air traffic controllers here in Nashville. Apparently, we're like low on air traffic controllers, and they said, well, that they're forced to retire at 56, and I'm 58, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I won't be doing that for a career.
right,
It's like I missed that boat. Well, listen,
yeah.
Butch, it's been a wonderful time chatting. I learned a lot. You give me a little bit of a good hope for the next generation with some of the stories there, and appreciate you
I think
spending
we're
some
in
time
good
with
shape.
us this morning.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Everybody, stay secure.